What's up, everybody? Jeffrey Bannick here. How's everybody doing today? Let me make sure we're alive in the group. I apologize about today being late, but Stevie, my cat, he had a problem. Let's see, we're almost live in the group. One second. Boom, we're live. What's up, everybody? Jeffrey Bannick here. Sorry about today. My kitty cat Stevie, he had a ruptured anal gland, so I was excited and got to take him into the vet this morning for it, and get him checked out to make sure he's okay and he's all good to go. He's in my lap right now, sleeping. Um, so unfortunately, they got me in on an emergency time, and the course of the time was right during the time of doing this. It was 8:30, so we missed it. So I apologize about that. But with that, no further ado, we're going to be doing Leviticus 4 through 7 today, and we're doing 7 through 9 of Matthew, I believe it is. Let me double check again real quick here. Um, yeah, 7 through 9 and 4 through 7. Yep. So perfect. Awesome. Excited. I do really enjoy this a lot. Being able to read the Bible. Again, if anybody ever has any comments or anything, I am watching the chat. So feel free to drop a comment in there. I'd love to talk with you guys about what's going on. If anybody's ever watching. But I do really enjoy reading this. I love learning about this. I find some of it very interesting. Old Testament's very interesting too. Some of the things I just don't know. I'd really like to be able to talk with someone about something like that. Like some of the things like what's up with gold so much? And what's up with like the different parts of the offerings and stuff? Like I'm sure it all means something, but I'd really like to be able to discuss that with someone. So if you ever happen to watch one of these and you yourself like talking about that stuff or know someone that does, send them my way. I'd love to be able to discuss it with you. Or it'd be really cool to even have someone on here with me that we could trade off. They could maybe read a chapter, I could read a chapter, and after at the end of each chapter, maybe we could discuss it even. That would be so cool to have somebody that we could do that. So if you yourself ever watch these or you know somebody that does and you'd love to be able to discuss God's word with me during this, we can just split the screen here. You could be on one side, we could put God in the middle. That'd be awesome, and we could do that. So anyway, think about that, or if, like I said, you know somebody, let me know because I think I'd like to try that. I'd just really like to be able to, as much as I enjoy reading this, and I just feel so good to do it. I would like to be able to discuss it. So ideally, someone that maybe has more knowledge than me to some degree, that isn't like new to Scripture like I am. I mean, I've read passages of the Bible, but I've never read through the whole thing until now, start to finish, and I've read chunks like Matthew and some of the other books and parts of the Old Testament, but never like this. So it'd just be cool to have somebody that maybe had more knowledge. If you really had a lot of knowledge, that'd be really cool. Or whatever. It'd be cool. So we'll see. But anyway, today we're on Leviticus 4, the sin offering. The Lord said to Moses, "Say to the Israelites, when anyone sins unintentionally and does what is forbidden in any of the Lord's commandments, if the anointed I can't talk today. If the anointed priest sins, bring guilt on the people. He must bring to the Lord a young bull without defect as a sin offering for the sin he has committed." Interesting. He is to present the bull at the entrance to the tent of meeting before the Lord. He is to lay his hand on the head and slaughter it there before the Lord. Then the anointed priest shall take some of the bull's blood and carry it into the tent of meeting. He is to dip his finger into the blood and sprinkle some of it 7 times before the Lord in the front of the curtain of the sanctuary. Um, is 7 because like the 7 days of creation? Is that what the 7 there? I wonder if that's why he's saying 7. Like, what is other than that? Because so far in what we've read, that's really the only significance. I mean, they had the 14 tribes, you know. I'm trying to think of other numerological instances that are going in and numerological instances that go in, but this is one of the first times I remember seeing 7, and I've always known 7 is supposedly a holy number. So yeah. Anyway, the priest shall then put some of the blood on fragrant the horns of the altar of fragrant incense that is before the Lord in the tent of meeting. The rest of the bull's blood shall be poured out at the base of the altar of burnt offering at the entrance of the meeting tent of meeting. I gotta think that this stuff, man. Again, they're pouring blood everywhere. Blood. I don't know if you guys have ever been around blood, but blood, like within like 72 hours, reeks, dude, reeks. If not even before that, depending on how hot it is. So I would have to think this stuff would just be like, I mean, I know they're burning it, so maybe that, on some, but they're splashing it on the sides of the altar. I don't know. This is interesting. I've always question. You shall remove all the fat from the bull of the sin offering, all the fat that is connected to the internal organs, both kidneys with the fat on them near the loins, and the long lobe of the liver, which he will remove with the kidneys, which, just as the fat is removed from the ox crucified as a fellowship offering, then the priest shall burn them on the altar of burnt offering. But the hide of the bull and its flesh, as well as the head and legs, the internal organs, and the intestines, that is all the rest of the bull, he must take outside the camp to a place ceremonially clean, where the ashes are thrown, and burn it there in the wood fire on the ash heap. Hmm. If the whole Israelite community sins unintentionally and does what is forbidden in any of the Lord's commandments, even though the community is unaware of the matter, then when they realize their guilt and the sin they committed becomes known, must bring a young bull as a sin offering and present it before the tent of meeting. So when they're saying unintentional, like how can the whole community sin unintentionally? You know what I mean? Like how I understand unintentional sins, they happen. But like, how could the whole community um sin unintentionally? You know what I mean? Like, interesting. I mean, is that what wokeness is now? Is that an unintentional sin as a community? Or do we need to slaughter a bull here or a little calf? Anyway, sorry. If the whole Israelite community sins unintentionally and does what is forbidden in any of the Lord's commandments, even though the community is unaware of the matter, when they realize their guilt, the sin they committed becomes known. The assembly must bring a young bull as a sin offering and present it before the tent of meeting. The elders of the community are to lay their hands on the bull's head before the Lord, and the bull shall be slaughtered before the Lord. Why does that have to be slaughtered right in front of him too? Like the taking is it the taking of the life? Is that's what's sort of pleasing? Like I don't understand too. Like why? I mean, like, am I really looking into it too much? I don't know. Um, let's see here. Bull's head before the Lord, and the bull should be slaughtered before the Lord. Then the anointed priest is to take some of the bull's blood into the tent of meeting. He shall dip his finger into the blood and sprinkle it before the Lord 7 times in front of the curtain. He is to put some of the blood on the horns of the altar that is before the Lord in the tent of meeting. The rest of the blood he shall pour out at the base of the altar of burnt offerings at the entrance of the tent of meeting. He shall remove all the fat from it and burn it on the altar. Again, like is fat like is that like a not like monetarily, but like is it because fat like a richness thing, like I don't understand why the fat is so big deal is because like that's where the energy of the beast is stored because energy is really just fat and stored energy to some degree. I don't know. Interesting. Let's see here. And do with this bull just as he did with the bull for sin offering. In the way the priest will make atonement for the community and they will be forgiven. Then he shall take the bull outside the camp and burn it as he's burned the first bull. This is the sin offering for the community. Scroll this up. When a leader sins unintentionally and does does what is forbidden in any of the commandments of the Lord his God, when he realizes his guilt and the sin he has committed becomes known, he must bring as his offering a male goat without defect. He is to lay his hand on the goat's head and slaughter it at the place where the burnt offering is slaughtered before the Lord. It is a sin offering. What so interesting. So depending on what it is, there's a different animal for the different type of sin or who sin. So, but you would think if the community sins, doesn't the leader sin too? So do all these have to happen? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I would. I mean, maybe not, but I don't know. I'm not. I'm not joking. I'm being serious. This is a sin offering. Then the priest shall take some of the blood of the sin offering with his finger and put it on the horns of the altar of burnt offering and pour out the rest of the blood at the base of the altar. He shall burn all the fat on the altar as he burnt the fat of the fellowship offering. In this way the priest will make atonement for this leader's sin, and he will be forgiven. If any member of the community sins unintentionally and does what is forbidden in any of the Lord's commandments, when they realize their guilt and the sin they have committed becomes known, they must bring their offering for sin they committed a female goat without defect. Hmm. Female goat without defect. There. They are to lay their hand on the base of the head of the sin offering and slaughter it in place of the burnt offering. Then place in the place at the place of the burnt offering. Then the priest is to take some of the blood with his finger and put it on the horns of the altar of burnt offering and pour out the rest of the blood at the base of the altar. They shall remove all the fat, just as the fat was removed from the fellowship offering, and the priest shall burn it on the altar as an aroma pleasing to the Lord. In this way, the priest will make atonement for them, and they will be forgiven. If anyone brings a lamb as their sin offering, they are to bring a female without defect. They are to lay their hand on its head and slaughter it for a sin offering in place where the burnt offering is slaughtered. Then the priest shall take some of the blood of the sin offering with his finger and put it on the horns of the burnt offering and pour out the rest of the blood at the base of the altar. They shall remove all the fat, just as the fat is removed from the lamb of the fellowship offering, and the priest shall burn it on the altar on top of the food offerings presented to the Lord. In this way, the priest will make atonement for them for the sin they have committed, and they will be forgiven. All right, Leviticus 5. If anyone sins me, oh, what's going on? If anyone sins because they do. If anyone sins because they do not speak up when they hear a public charge to testify, if anyone sins because they do not speak up when they hear a public charge to testify regarding something they have seen or learned about, they will be held responsible. If anyone becomes aware that they are guilty, if they unwittingly touch anything ceremonially unclean, whether the carcass of an unclean animal, wild or domestic, or if any unclean creature that moves along the ground, and they are unaware that they have become unclean, but then they have come to realize their guilt, or if they touch human uncleanness, hmm, anything that would make them unclean, even though they were unaware of it, but they then learned of it and realized the guilt, or if anyone thoughtlessly takes an oath to do anything, whether good or evil, in any matter one might carelessly swear about, even though they are unaware of it, but when they learn of it and realize their guilt, but when anyone becomes aware that they are guilty in any of these matters, they are to confess in what way they have sinned. As a penalty for the sin they have committed, they must bring the Lord a female lamb or goat from the flock as a sin offering, and the priest shall make an atonement for their sin. Anyone who cannot afford a lamb is to bring 2 doves or 2 young pigeons to the Lord as a penalty for their sin, one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering. Interesting. They are to bring them to the priest, who shall first offer the one for the sin offering. He is to wring its head from its neck, not dividing it completely, and is to splash some of the blood of the sin offering against the sides of the altar. The rest of the blood must be drained out at the base of the altar. It is a sin offering. Priest shall then offer the other as a burnt offering in the prescribed way and make atonement for them for the sin they have committed, and they will be forgiven. If, however, they cannot afford 2 doves or 2 young pigeons, they are to bring as an offering for the sin a tenth of an ephah of the finest flour for a sin offering. They must not put olive oil or incense on it because it is a sin offering. They will bring it to the priest, who shall take a handful of it as a memorial portion and burn it on the altar on top of the food offerings presented to the Lord. It is a sin offering. In this way, the priest will make atonement for them for any of these sins they have committed, and they will be forgiven. The rest of the offering will belong to the priest, just in the case of the grain offering. The guilt offering. The Lord said to Moses, when anyone is unfaithful to the Lord by sinning unintentionally in regard to any of the Lord's holy things, they are to bring to the Lord as a penalty a ram from the flock, one without defect and of the proper value in silver, according to the sanctuary shekel. It is a guilt offering. So then, does that mean it needs to be equal to one sanctuary shekel? Is that what that means? They must make restitution for what they have failed to do in regard to the holy things, pay an additional penalty of a tenth of its value, or a fifth of, I don't say tenth, a fifth of its value, and it all to the priest. The priests are to make atonement for them with the ram as a guilt offering, and they will be forgiven. If anyone sins and does what is forbidden in any of the Lord's commandments, even though they do not know it, they are guilty and will be held responsible. They are to bring to the priest as a guilt offering a ram from the flock, one without defect and a proper value. In this way, the priest will make atonement for them for the wrong they have committed unintentionally, and they will be forgiven. As a guilt offering, they will be guilty of wrongdoing against the Lord. It is a guilt offering. They have been guilty of wrongdoing against the Lord. Leviticus 6. And the Lord said to Moses, if anyone sins and is unfaithful to the Lord by deceiving a neighbor about something entrusted to them or left in their care, or about something stolen, or if they cheat their neighbor, or if they find or if they find lost property and lie about it, or if they swear falsely about such any such sin that people may commit, when they sin in any of these ways and realize their guilt, they must return what they have stolen or taken by extortion, or what was entrusted to them, or the lost property they found, or whatever it is they sworn falsely about. They must make restitution in full, add a fifth of the value to it, and give it to the owner on the day of presenting their guilt offering. And as a penalty, must bring to the priest, that is, to the Lord, their guilt offering, a ram from the flock, one without defect and one of the proper value. In this way, the priest will make atonement for them before the Lord, and they will be forgiven of any things they did that made them guilty. The burnt offering. The Lord said to Moses, "Give Aaron and his sons this commandment. They are the regulators for the burnt offering. The burnt offering is to remain on the altar hearth throughout the night till morning, and the fire must be kept burning on the altar. Oh, wow, they have to stay up all night and keep the fire going? The priest shall then put on this linen cloth, his linen clothes with linen undergarments next to his body, and shall remove the ashes of the burnt offering that the fire was consumed on the ashes of the burnt offering that the fire has consumed on the altar, and place them beside the altar. Then he is to take off these clothes and put on others, and carry the ashes outside the camp to a place that is ceremonially clean. The fire on the altar must be kept burning. It must not go out. Every morning the priest is to add firewood and arrange the burnt offering on the fire, and burn the fat of the fellowship offering on it. The fire must be kept burning on the altar continuously and must not go out. Wow. Huh. The grain offering. These are the regulations for the grain offering. Aaron's sons are to bring it before the Lord in front of the altar. The priests are to take a handful of the finest flour and some olive oil, together with all the incense of the grain offering, and burn the memorial portion on the altar as an aroma pleasing to the Lord. Aaron and his sons shall eat the rest of it, but it is to be eaten without yeast in the sanctuary area. They are to eat it in the courtyard of the tent of meeting. It must not be baked with yeast. I have given it as their share of the food offerings presented to me. Like the sin offering, the guilt offering, it is most holy. Any male descendants of Aaron may eat it for all the generations to come. It is a perpetual share for the food offering presented to the Lord. Whatever touches them, it will become holy. The Lord also said to Moses, "This is the offering Aaron and his sons are to bring to the Lord on the day he anointed a tenth of an ephah of the finest flour as a regular grain offering, half of it in the morning and half in the evening. It is to be prepared with oil on a griddle. Bring it well mixed and present the grain offering broken in pieces as an aroma pleasing to the Lord. The son who has succeeded him as anointed priest shall prepare it. It is the Lord's perpetual share and is to be burned completely. Every grain offering of a priest shall be burned completely and must not be eaten. The sin offering. The Lord said to Moses, say to Aaron and his sons, these are the regulations for the sin offering. The sin offering is to be slaughtered before the Lord in the place the burnt offering is slaughtered. It is most holy. The priest who offers it shall eat it. It is to be clean in the sanctuary area in the courtyard of the tent of meeting. Whatever touches any of the flesh will become holy. And if any of the blood splattered on the garment, you must wash it in the sanctuary area. The clay pot the meat is cooked in must be broken, but if it is cooked in a bronze pot, the pot must be scoured and rinsed with water. Oh, these don't clean it or throw it away, basically. Any male in the priest's family may eat it. It is most holy. But any sin offering whose blood is brought into the tent of meeting to make to make atonement in the holy place must not be eaten. It must be burned up. Leviticus 7. Interesting. These are the regulations for the guilt offering, which is most holy. The guilt offering is to be slaughtered in the place where the burnt offering is slaughtered, and its blood is to be splashed against the sides of the altar. All its fat shall be offered, the fat tail, the fat that covers the internal organs, both kidneys with fat on them near the loins, and the long lobe of the liver, which is to be removed with the kidneys. The priest shall burn them on the altar as a food offering presented to the Lord. It is a guilt offering. Any male is in a priest's family may eat it, but it must be eaten in the sanctuary area. It is most holy. The same applies to both the sin offering and the guilt offering. They belong to the priest who made atonement with them. The priest who offers a burnt offering to anyone may keep it aside for himself. Every grain offering baked in an oven or cooked in a pan or on a griddle belongs to the priest who offers it. And every grain offering, whether mixed with olive oil or dry, belongs equally to all the sons of Aaron. The fellowship offering. These are the regulations for the fellowship offering. The fellowship offering anyone may present to the Lord. If they offer it as an expression of thankfulness, then along with this thank offering, they are to offer thick loaves made without yeast and with olive oil mixed in. Thin loaves made without yeast and brushed with oil. The thick loaves of the finest flour, well kneaded and with oil mixed in. Along with their fellowship offering of thanksgiving, they are to present an offering with thick loaves of bread made with yeast. So these get to be with yeast. Okay. They are to bring one of each kind as an offering, a contribution to the Lord. It belongs to the priest who splashes the blood of the fellowship offering against the wall. Well, that's interesting. They get certain parts depending on what their job is. The meat of the fellowship offering of thanksgiving must be eaten on the day it is offered. They must leave none of it till morning. If, however, their offering is a result of a vow or as a free will offering, the sacrifice shall be eaten on the day of the offering, but anything left over may be eaten on the next day. Interesting. Free will offering. It's just like you're just coming in, you just say, I need to make an offering. Or a sacrifice. Offering? Yeah, offering. Any meat of the sacrifice left over till the third day must be burned up. If any meat of the fellowship offering is eaten on the third day, the one who offered it will not be accepted. It will not be reckoned to their credit. It will not be reckoned to their credit, for it has become impure. The person who eats any of it will be held responsible. Meat that touches anything ceremonially unclean must not be eaten. It must be burned up. As for the meat, anyone ceremonially clean may eat it. But if anyone who is unclean eats any of the meat of the fellowship offering belonging to the Lord, they must be cut off from their people. Wow. Anyone who touches something unclean, whether human uncleanness or an unclean animal or any unclean creature that moves along the ground, and they eat any of its meat of the fellowship, and then eat and then eats any of the meat of the fellowship offering belonging to the Lord must be cut from their people. Eating fat and blood are forbidden. The Lord said to Moses, say to the Israelites not to eat any of the fat of cattle, sheep, or goats. Is that why they burn it? The fat of all animal found dead or torn by a wild animal may be used for any other purpose, but you must not eat it. Anyone who eats the fat of the animal from which a food offering may be presented to the Lord must be cut off from their people. And wherever you live, you must not eat the blood of any bird or animal. Anyone who eats blood must be cut from their people. Interesting. The priest share. The Lord said to Moses, say to the Israelites, anyone who brings a fellowship offering to the Lord is to be part of it as their sacrifice to the Lord. With their own hands, they are to be presented are to present the food offering to the Lord. They are to bring the fat together with the breast and wave the breast before the Lord as a wave offering. The priest shall burn the fat offering on the altar with the breast, but the breast belongs to Aaron and his sons. You are to give the right thigh of the fellowship offerings to the priest as a contribution. The sons of Aaron who offers blood and the fat of the fellowship offering shall have the right thigh as his share. From the fellowship offerings of the Israelites, I have taken the breast that is waved and the thigh that is presented, and give them to Aaron the priest and his sons, as their perpetual share for the Israelites. This is a portion of food offering presented to the Lord that were allotted to Aaron and his sons the day they were presented to serve the Lord as priests. All right. On the day that they were anointed, the Lord commanded the Israelites to give them to give this to them. I don't know why I can read that. As their perpetual share for the generations to come. These then are the regulations for the burnt offering, the grain offering, the sin offering, the guilt offering, the ordination offering, and fellowship offering, which the Lord gave Moses at Mount Sinai in the desert of Sinai on the day he commanded the Israelites to bring their offerings to the Lord. All right. So let's go to Matthew now. And we're going to do 4 to 7 on Matthew. All right. So Jesus is tested in the wilderness. When Jesus was then led by a spirit in the wilderness to be tempted by the devil, after fasting 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. No, we read this. We read this already. Yeah, we read this. We must have. What are we ending? 6? Giving a needy. Oh, yeah. Prayer. Read about prayer, fasting. Not worry. Did we read a 7 yesterday? Judging others. We did not read this far. We must have. Maybe I read the 6 yesterday. Sorry. I'll have to write down. I'm changing up the order. And I must have read 3 through 6 yesterday, maybe. Hmm. Judge, do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged, and with the same measure you use, it will be measured to you. I've always sort of wondered what that exactly means. Less the way that you will be judged. So, what do they mean when they say judge? Like, because like judging is like laying down like a verdict on something. Is it maybe saying something's absolute there? Hmm. I don't know. It's interesting. Let's see what judge says here real quick for. So judge here is a verb. So verb use object. Why would you define a word with a word? To act as judge, pass between judgment, or pass judgment. Hmm. Govern. All right. Well, why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How do you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye when all the time there's a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. Do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and tear you to pieces. Ask, seek, and knock. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find it. Knock, and the door will be opening. For everyone who asks receives, and anyone who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks, the door will be open. Which of which of you, if your sons ask for bread, will give him a stone? Would give him a snake? If you then, through you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children. If you then, though you are evil, know how to give gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask him? So in everything, do to others what you have them do to you. For the sum up the law, for this sums up the law and the prophecies, or the prophets, prophecies. Enter through the narrow gate, for the wide gate is the for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter. Narrow is the gate, but narrow is the gate and narrow but small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only if you find it. Stephen, just wait. I'm almost done. True and false prophets. Watch out for false prophets. They will come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ferocious wolves. By their fruits you will recognize them. Do not do people pick grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Likewise, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown in the fire. Thus, all their fruit you will recognize. Thus, by their fruit you will recognize them. Excuse me, my cat's freaking out. All right, back. Not every Lord, Lord will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the ones who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. Many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name drive out demons, and in your name perform many miracles? Then I will tell them plainly, I never knew you. Away from me, you evildoers, the wise and foolish builders. Therefore, anyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice, like a wise man who builds his house on the rock, the rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house, yet did not fail or fall because it had a foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who builds his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the wind blew and beat against the house, and it fell with a great crash. When Jesus finished saying these things, the crowds were amazed at his teachings because he taught as one who had authority and not as their teachers of the law. Jesus heals a man with leprosy. When Jesus came down from the mountainside, large crowds followed him. A man with leprosy came and knelt before him and said, Lord, if you are willing, can you make me clean? Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. I'm willing. He said, be clean. Immediately he was cleansed of his leprosy. Then Jesus said to him, see that you don't go tell anyone, but go show yourselves to the priest and offer the gift Moses commanded as the testimony to them. The faith of the centurion. When Jesus had entered Cap, 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 Capernaum, a centurion came to him asking for help. Lord, he said, my servant lies at home paralyzed, suffering terribly. Jesus said to him, shall I come and heal him? The centurion replied, Lord, I do not deserve to have you come under my roof, but if you say the word and my servant will, but just say the word and my servant will be healed. For I myself am a man under authority with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he goes, and I tell that one, come, and he comes. When I say to my servant, do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard this, he was amazed, and he said to those following him, truly I tell you, I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith. I say to you that many will come with from east and west, and will come take their place at the feast with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. I say to you that many will come from the east and the west, and will take their places at the feast with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the subjects of kingdom will be thrown outside into the darkness. But the subjects of the kingdom will be thrown outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then Jesus said to the centurion, go, let it be just as you believed it would, and the servant was healed at that moment. Jesus heals many. When Jesus came to Peter's house, he saw Peter's mother-in-law lying in bed with a fever. He touched her hand, and the fever left her, and she got up and began to wait on him. When evening came, many who were demon possessed were brought to him, and he drove the spirits out with a word and healed all the sick. It just this was just a this was to fill what was spoken through the prophet Isaiah. He took up our infirmaries and bore our diseases. The cost of following Jesus. When Jesus saw the crowd around him, he gave orders to cross to the other side of the lake. Then the teacher of the law came to him and said, teacher, I will follow you wherever you go. Jesus replied, foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. Another disciple said to him, Lord, first let me go and bury my father. And Jesus said to him, follow me and let the dead bury their own dead. Jesus calms the storm. Then he got to the boat. Then he got to the into the boat, and his disciples followed him. Suddenly, a ferocious storm came up on the lake, so that the waves swept over the boat. But Jesus was sleeping. Then the disciples went and woke him, saying, "Lord, save us! We're going to drown." He replied, "You of little faith, why are you so afraid?" Then he got up and rebuked the winds and the waves, and it was completely calm. The men were amazed and asked, "What kind of man is this? Even the winds and the waves obey him." Jesus restores two demon-possessed men. When he arrived at the river at the other side, wow. When he arrived at the other side in the region of the Gad- Gadarnans, it's like gardens, but with Gadarens. Two demon-possessed men coming from the tombs met him. They were so violent no one could pass that way. What do you want with the Son of God? They shouted. Have you come to torture us before the appointed time? Some distance from them, a large herd of pigs was feeding. The demons begged Jesus, if you drive us out, send us into the herd of pigs. He said, go. So they came out and went in the pigs, and the whole herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and died in the water. Those tending the pigs ran off, went in the town, and reported all this, including what had happened to the demon possessed men. Then the whole town went out to meet Jesus, and when they saw him, they pleaded with him to leave their region. It would sort of suck if you own that whole like herd of pigs. I mean, like, what's a herd? 6, 10, 30? I don't know. But that just all of a sudden you're down a herd. All right. So we're gonna read 9 today and wrap up on 9. Oh man, my shoulder's just been killing me today. Jesus forgives and heals a paralyzed man. Jesus stepped in the boat, crossed over, and came to his own town. Jesus stepped into a boat, crossed over, and came into his own town. Some men brought him a paralyzed man lying on a mat. When Jesus saw their faith, he said to the man, "Take heart, son, your sins are forgiven." At this time, at this, some of the teachers of the law said to themselves, "This fellow is blaspheming." Knowing their thoughts, Jesus said, "Who do you entertain Why do you entertain evil thoughts in your hearts? Which is easier to say, your sins are forgiven, or to say, get up and walk? But I want you to know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins." So he said to the paralyzed man, "Get up and take your mat and go home." Then the man got up and now he's like, "Not only am I going to forgive you, but I'm also you're going to walk too." And then the man got up and went home. When the crowd saw this, were they filled with awe, and they praised God who had given them authority to man. The calling of Matthew. As Jesus went on from there, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the tax collector's booth. "Follow me," he told him, and Matthew got up and followed him. When was having dinner at Matthew's house, many tax collectors and sinners came and ate with him and his disciples. When the Pharisees saw this, they asked his disciples, "Why do your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" On hearing this, Jesus said, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. But go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice, for I have not come to call the righteous, but the sinners." Jesus questioned about fasting. When John's disciples came and asked him, how is it that we and the Pharisees fast often, but your disciples do not fast? Jesus answered, "How can the guest of the bridegroom mourn while he is with them? The time will come when bridegroom will be taken from them, then they will fast." So he's like, once he's gone, I think he's trying to say. No one sews a patch of unshrunken cloth to an old garment, for the patch will pull away from the garment, making the tear worse. Neither do people pour new wine into old wineskins. If they do, the wine will burst. The wine will run out, and the wineskins will be ruined. No, they pour new wine in new wineskins, both are preserved. Jesus raises a dead girl and heals a sick woman. While he was saying this, the synagogue leader came and knelt before him and said, "My daughter has died, but come and put your hand on her, and she will live." Jesus got up and went with him, and so did his disciples. Just then, a woman who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years came up to him and touched the edge of his cloak. She said to herself, "If I only touch his cloak, I will be healed." Jesus turned to her and saw her. "Take heart, daughter," he said. Your faith has healed you." And the woman was healed at that moment. Wow. When Jesus entered the synagogue leader's house and saw the noisy crowd and people playing pipes, he said, Go away. The girl is not dead, but asleep." But they laughed at him. But after the crowd had been put outside, he went in and took the girl by the hand, and she got up. News of this spread throughout all the region. Jesus heals the blind and the mute. As Jesus went on from there, two blind men followed him, calling out, "Mercy on us, son of David." When he had gone indoors, the blind man came to him and he asked them, "Do you believe that I'm able to do this?" "Yes, Lord," they replied. He touched their eyes, and according to your faith, let it be done to you. And their sight was restored. Jesus warned them sternly, "See that no one knows about this." But they went out and spread the news about him all over the region. While they were going out, a man who was demon possessed and could not talk was brought to Jesus. When the demon was driven out, the man who had been mute spoke. The crowd was amazed and said, "Nothing like this has ever been seen in Israel." But the Pharisees said, "It is by the prince of demons that he drives out demons." The workers are few. Jesus went into the towns and villages, teaching their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to the disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field." All right. So we'll be back on the regular time. No, we won't. Tomorrow we won't. I actually not that I needed to say a little prayer for me. I have to do a go to do a minor surgery tomorrow, not a big deal. So I will not be doing that. Maybe I'll do it before. I'll probably do it at 7 before I leave, so that way we'll get it in for the day. So we're gonna do it earlier rather than not at all.